Some more Bill stories. I thought he was so cool when he was in the Air Force. He'd come, we get pictures of him in his uniform, and then when he would wear his uniform, which he didn't do much when he came home. But oh boy, I thought he was so cool.
I remember coming home and taking pictures of all of you. I had a camera I got in the Air Force, and I remember Dorothy and Ann out there south of the house in the flower garden, and I was taking their pictures. I had all kinds of them.
Were you the one that lined us up all at current Geraldine and Charlie's stair steps picture out by the wall, outside of the house? Well, you were in it, of course. I don't know if you orchestrated that.
I don't remember.
You brought pots and pans for Mom. Didn't you sell dinnerware or pots and pans? You brought a whole set for Mom.
Oh yeah, there were some people, friends of mine in the Air Force, that would hold these Tupperware parties. They were wherever, and they would teach people how to cook with wherever. It was called wireless cooking, and they induced me to become a salesman. I never sold anything, but I had the cookware, and I gave that to Mom.
Cooked in it for years.
Very happy with it.
It was all aluminum.
You brought a present for Dorothy one time. I can't remember what it was. I think it was a doll. And Dorothy was too shy and she wouldn't come out and get it. And finally she did, because you said, if you don't come and get it, I'm going to give it to Ann.
Terrible.
One of my fondest memories of you, Bill.
I've got a John story I could have told last week, but I forgot. John had a little box camera, and one time he took me outside and he had me stand and took my picture. Then he had me move over, stand behind a brick, and he took the picture again, and there were two of me.
Oh,
Full exposure.
He didn't roll the film, did he, Bill?
Oh, I guess not.
Anyway, I was really surprised.
I remember working on the front porch on the house, and one time Julie and I were there, and the side porch on the front, the small porch, was getting kind of dilapidated. So we decided to work on that. Julie helped me. She was always a good partner. And we decided to do the landscaping. And Trish would never forgive us for changing the driveway to go around the cave. Every time she'd come home, she'd swear at us.
swear.
Change that driveway. I just come up there and park, she said.
That front porch.
I got so I liked it better.
Before you had the concrete. How many of you crawled from one end to the other through that dust and dirt? John and Teresa and I did. You did, Chuck. Imagine that. Mom was so irritated when we would get out dust from one end to the other.
What end of what?
That front porch. On the north side was an opening where the
right
was gone, and on the south side was an opening, and we'd crawl under all the way through that dirt and dust. Did you do that?
You're looking
it was where the dogs slept.
Yeah, but we crawled through there.
We were smarter than that.
So we got sick joy from it, and I can't figure out why.
Dorothy and I walked through a thing that Pete had, that he had dug a trench and filled it with water for the hogs to go in it. And Dorothy and I went out and went in it, walked through it. And then Bernadine told us, she said, you know, the hogs poop in there.
Oh my God.
which we hadn't thought of. So what she did is she did a barrel for us. And she had a barrel and set it up on its end and filled it with water, and Dorothy and I would go swimming in the barrel.
Right.
Cool.
Bernadine always thought what she could do to make us have a good time. Like, let's have a picnic on the porch out of the pine trees. That's the first time I had tuna salad out there with her. We'll have a picnic. We was over at the Groningers. And
We had olives too.
and going to get the paper with Fibber, that was such a treat. And then walking
Yeah,
in the creek.
she always had something going on, and you know, there was Hades, and then upstairs there was that grate. She said, you can call down through that and tell us when you want pancakes.
Now, she used to have us put a string down with a note on it what we wanted.
Yeah.
So clever.
Yeah. That's-
She loved to fish though, remember? I forget the neighbor's name on the south where we used to go up there and go fishing.
Heinen's.
Islands, right. Yeah, she loved to go fishing.
I remember. Go ahead.
I
was
think
gonna say
she was
they
so lonely because she was such an outgoing personality, and to be there all day by herself, you know, that was after she'd been working in Kansas City and around a lot of people at work. That must have been really hard.
Helen loved her.
Who?
Helen.
Oh, yeah.
She loved Bernadine.
She worked in Kansas City at a place called Brentano's,
I think it was Berkson's, Bill.
or Berkson's. It was
Yeah,
a
Berkson's.
woman's clothing store, I think.
Yeah, they're on the corner on Main.
Yeah. I remember when Bernadine Pete got married, and they were dressed up, and the best man, if I thought long enough, I could probably think of his name.
Probably
Matt
Matt.
Broniger.
Matt. It was Matt Broniger, wasn't it?
His brother, Matt.
Matt,
No.
his brother.
You
Francis.
could probably find it. He was a real good-looking guy. You could probably find him in some of the old pictures, because there was the picture of 4 of them together at the wedding.
Francis was the bridesmaid.
Little Tracy was the flower girl.
I was the flower
Yeah.
girl.
So
Little
what was your memory, Bill? About the
Well, I
best
just
man?
remember, I remember the wedding, the things that went on, some of them.
Mm.
That tiny
Uh,
little church, in Evers. Do you remember that little church?
Joseph's Church, yes. I remember
Wooden
playing.
church.
The little church had everybody's name on the pew.
Yeah,
Mm.
I like St. John's at Donovan at first, till Jimmy Hurst changed the names around.
And I thought it was so boring that Geraldine and Alma both got married in suits. I thought it was just, I wanted to see a wedding gown because it was my first 2 weddings that I ever went to. And both of them were in suits. Geraldine, I think, was in gray, and I think Alma was in brown, but I'm not sure.
It was a light blue or aqua.
But years later, Margaret came to, I think, a funeral, someone's funeral, and she had this gorgeous suit on, and it was her mother's wedding suit.
Your kid.
Oh, it was beautiful. I could appreciate it as an adult. As a little kid, I thought it was, so boring. Beautiful suit.
Remember when Geraldine and Charlie weren't married, and Daddy sent them a happy anniversary card because they had been knowing each other for 25 years.
Charlie was always fun. I remember him coming up to the Evers house in his Model A or Model T, whatever it was. And we'd get in and ride around, and we were up so high, and we'd go up and down the roads. We thought that was the best thing. Charlie was always fun.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
He'd be drawing pictures for you. He loved to draw horses.
Mm.
And he was a great storyteller.
Out of Kennecook. They grow fine wheat out of Kennecook.
Any more Bill stories? I'm trying to think of some.
What I really enjoyed was that windmill at Everest. I was so fascinated to think that would turn and bring water. I don't know why, but it was just magic to me.
All the way up that hill, so far.
Uh-huh. And I would get up in the morning and love to see it turning.
Hmm.
Mary Kay and Treese, tell the story about the tunnel.
What
What
tunnel?
tunnel?
Oh, the tunnel to the barn.
Yes.
That one?
Which barn?
Is there another one?
Oh,
John
John.
had it.
Oh, John and Bill.
They would try
Bill,
to
do you
go up
remember
in the
that? In the south
Yeah.
closet, there was cracks in the wall. And you and Bill, John, told us that was a secret tunnel that came out down by the barn below the honey house. And you would put John in the closet and knock 3 times, have Teresa and I hide our eyes and knock 3 times. And then after a while, you'd take us in the north room and have us look out the west window and say, see, he got out of the tunnel.
He
You know,
come
remember
walking
that?
up.
And Teresa and I would go in there and beat on that wall, try to open it. We were just bang, 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 trying to get in the tunnel. You don't remember?
I remember.
You remember telling that lie, huh?
I dreamed that thing up.
On your nightmares. Hey, Bill, tell us about your pitching career. Baseball.
Oh, yeah. I could not pitch baseball at all. I was terrible. But what was Shealy? What was his name, Charles?
Bill?
Alice
Bill
and
Shealy.
Bill, yeah.
He wanted to get up the team. So he got up the team and we played and nobody could pitch. So he said, you're it.
Well, John always thought you were a natural pitcher.
Yeah, because remember Uncle Ed, we were up there and he came clear down to watch that game down there on the sand lot, what the Dairy Queen is, what the town was across the street. Where the now. I can remember when that was ball field was. That is.
I remember one time we played some kids north of Division Street. They were all black. Every pitch I made, they would hit it out of the park.
It's a long game then.
Why did you join the Air Force, Bill?
Well, Charlie Wagner and I and Bill Cly were all friends. And Charlie was in the National Guard. And Bill Cly and I were induced to join. And Dad said, you don't want to get in the National Guard. You might have to go to war. I said, well, there'll never be another war. Thinking that how the World War II had ended. Well, guess what? That was the year I graduated from high school, joined the National Guard, went to a couple meetings, and the Korean War broke out. Well, that's fine. Then we went to Fort Leonard Wood, and we had to play like we were soldiers. And there were different battalions there, and we fought another battalion in the middle of the night, tromping around through the woods. I don't know why we didn't get snake bit, but we were stumbling over things, and our platoon got lost. Charlie Wagner was the leader, got lost. And we never did get to enter in the fight. But Bill Cly and I both said, we've had enough of this infantry. We're going to join the Air Force.
And the National Guard was being called up to go to Korea, weren't they?
What's
You
that?
know, that National Guard,
No,
was,
the National Guard was never called out.
they weren't? I thought they were called up.
No, they were not.
Hmm.
Never went.
They were
Well,
called up.
there was,
No, Charlie Wagner never went to war.
They were
there
called
was a
up for
draft.
Vietnam, Mary Kay.
What'd you
There was
say?
I said they were called up for Vietnam.
Oh, okay, maybe that's
They were
all. it's
drafted.
confusing.
they were drafted for the Korean War too, because that's how why Chris had to go. And I remember when he came, he used to get his mail at our house. And the one day he came in and it was the call-up letter. And
Oh,
he
yeah.
sat there with his cigarette and he was so emotional. He was sitting there about ready to cry, and the cigarette, the ash got really, really long because of course he wasn't paying attention to the cigarette. Anyway, he sat there with that letter in his hand. And I just remember now I think about that and how I feel so sorry for him at that point. I was such a little kid. Wasn't sure what it all meant, but anyway, it was.
Mike Wagner went to Vietnam. His nephew.
Yeah, Bill Ruhlman, Don Ruhlman's older brother,
Oh,
he was
yeah.
killed in Vietnam.
And he was due to come home in a week or two, wasn't he?
I don't know. I think so.
Us.
You
Yeah.
meant in Korea. You meant in Korea.
Yeah.
In Korea, yeah.
Yeah.
I always got Vietnam on my mind because that
I'll
was a
never
terrible war.
Yeah. Bill Roman's funeral, I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
The first young funeral we had at St. Joseph's Church. Oh my gosh.
I was in 6th grade and Ann Roman was in the 5th grade when Father Matthew came into the room and announced before all of us that little Billy Roman had died. And poor Ann was sitting there. I mean, her mother should have told her, or her father. And that was just, I thought, a horrible thing.
Oh my gosh. And so that's how she found out.
How she found out.
Mm-mm-mm.
Anyway, more memories of Bill.
I remember polishing shoes and ironing shirts.
Washing the car.
What
Yeah,
about
And you would
I
go
never did
to,
that.
what was the place in St. Joe where you used to go dancing on
Lake
dates?
Contrary, wasn't it? No, the
Frog Hop.
The frog hop.
Frog hop. You had pretty wavy hair and you spent a long time styling it.
Yeah. I never could dance though. Aunt Genevieve gave me dancing lessons, and she would teach the foxtrot. That's what she called it.
Trot in the wall.
And you know, I don't have any rhythm at all. I couldn't play music, so those lessons didn't do me any good.
And the jitterbug was popular, wasn't it?
Yes.
Did Julie like to dance?
Bill? What about
I'm
the
gonna leave for a minute. I'll be back.
what about the horse?
What?
What about the horses and the buggy?
Oh, yeah. Uncle Bill gave us that buggy, and I think it was a one-horse buggy, wasn't it? Yeah, it had shaves for one horse, and I remember old Tarzan would pull the buggy around, and I remember taking it over to Spillman's one day and took, what was the lady's name? Was it
Spillman.
Reba?
Reba.
Yeah.
What was her name?
Reba.
R-E-B-A.
Yeah, Reba. And I took her for a buggy ride, and she sure enjoyed that.
I
She
remember
was
that
sure.
buggy.
What happened to the
And
buggy
then-
after?
Well, we, I don't know what how it ended, but I remember we would get in it and we would guide it with ropes, a rope on each side of the axle.
Right.
And we'd go down toward the barn and we'd pick up a pretty good head of speed and we'd go around the corner almost on two wheels and go out to the road and aim back up the hill, and then we'd push it back and do the same thing over again. But I don't know what happened to the buggy.
I don't either.
The guys at Mar Hill borrowed it for, they used to have a dog patch dance, and they borrowed it to use, and they didn't bring it back. And they used to ride down the hill on it, and they broke it up. I don't know that we ever got it back.
Oh.
But that was during John's time, I think. They asked to borrow it.
Oh.
Remember our dad cultivating the garden with the horses?
Yeah.
This one horse, Tarzan.
Yeah.
He put us up on top, Dorothy and me.
Me too, got to ride once in a while.
He was so proud about Tarzan never stepped on a plant. I know.
Yeah. I remember when he had corn up by the Stinky House and field corn, and I remember going up there. Well, I remember going up there, him getting me out early, and I'd have to do the cultivating with the horses. But then the pigs were up there, and what he'd do, he'd put the electric fence up there and the wire down close to the ground, just one wire, and the pigs wouldn't cross it, so he would let them have a little bit of fresh corn every day. And I remember one day we were sitting up there in the shade. There was a kind of a bank there where the stream used to go down by the field. And I remember sitting there in the shade and the pigs all around us. And my dad would taught me how to scratch their bellies. And they just roll over and just complete bliss. They just sat there and little grunts, you know.
Well, I did not know this. Remember how Daddy called the horses and cows or pigs, suck, bossy, suck, 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 remember? Well, I didn't know that was all over. That's the way Lee's family called their animals. They called them suck, bossy, suck, suck, suck. I didn't know it was so common. And they were down in Arkansas. Never thought that. I thought that was just kind of unique to the Elias family or something.
Yeah, I remember riding Tarzan, and I couldn't stay on. I rode him about like I did dancing. And one time we were down at the college farm, and they were riding, and they were more experienced than me. Norbert was a pretty good rider.
Oh, Norbert was great.
And one time we were headed toward home, and they were going to see me home, and the horses started running, and Tarzan was very competitive. He was going like the wind, and I remember Buddy Moran's, he taught me how to ride the bicycle, and he put me on his bicycle, yeah, I think it was his, out by our mailbox, and he got me started, and I didn't know how to make a corner. I didn't know how to lean into it, and I walked straight across and ended up in the grader ditch. Well, that's the same way I was on Tarzan. I didn't know how to lean into the corner, and he left me there on the corner, and I had to walk home to find him.
Didn't come back for you.
But that would have hurt too, falling.
Did Mom ever ride a bicycle?
don't think so.
What's that question?
Did Mom ever ride a bicycle?
The bicycle.
Not that I know of.
I can remember,
John was good at riding Tarzan. He kept at it, I guess, but he was pretty good. And I tried riding Tarzan one time. I was going to run Tarzan, but everybody who rode Tarzan always said he was a rough ride.
no, it wasn't.
And so I was riding Tarzan and I was going down the hill by the mailbox, and Tarzan picked up speed and I went right off the front of him and I fell, and my gosh, I scraped up my back and legs so bad. But you know, Tarzan stopped just as soon as I fell. He was great.
Did you ever ride Lazy or Jerry? John, when
Yeah,
he and I would go riding, he always got Tarzan. And I remember one time we were over there by the orchard, and there's a fence, a barbed wire fence. And Lacey was just tired of me riding, so he just bucked me off, and it went right between the wires. But John always got Tarzan. Well, let's go horse riding, Mary Kay. Well, can I have Tarzan? No.
I remember one time talking Ann and Chuck, you were just little guys, into riding Tarzan with me. And we got on, and there were three of us. I was in the back, and we went around the pasture and we went down into one of the ravines, and everything was just fine. But coming up the ravine, Tarzan picked up speed, you know, to get up the hill. And we all three just slid off backwards. The two of you on top of me. I think I gave you a soft landing.
Yeah.
Was there ever a
Well, I
saddle
remember.
for him? Was there ever
What?
a saddle?
No.
I remember one time riding Tarzan, and this was after I'd become more comfortable and thought I was a real cowboy. And I was up there on the hill and looking down at the pond, you know. There was a road that went up through there, and this was before the pond was built, so it was just level down there. And as you come down the hill, it was a gentle sloping hill. And then before you get to the pond, well, there was kind of a bank. You'd go down straight. So up at the top of the hill, I started loping down with Tarzan, and we were going great. And came to that place where it kind of dropped off, and he decided he wasn't going to go down there. But I did. I went sliding across the bottom of my belly.
You know, I think about Mom and Daddy, when the Sitteners lived on the college farm, Angela Sittener would ride her horse up by us. And she and I would get Tarzan, and we would go over riding over by the school, St. Joseph's School, over there at night, riding horses. My goodness, I wouldn't let my daughter in the 6th grade do that. In the dark, riding horses isn't that good. But Ann and I did that several times. She would ride clear from the college farm up there.
She could really ride.
Angela was good, yeah.
Daisy was her horse. She'd tear down the road on Daisy.
Mary Kay,
Yeah.
your mom wouldn't let you do it either.
I'm sure she didn't know what was going on. Like she didn't know when you took wine to school. Drank it in the lunchroom.
She was in Biloxi with Bill. Isn't that when the wine went to school?
Oh, maybe so.
No, it was when Grandpa and Grandma Elias took care of us.
Right.
When Mom and Daddy went to Biloxi. And, you know, we would sit around and play Shostkov at night with Grandpa and drink wine. He thought that was fun, drinking wine. And so I decided I'd take it, you know, we'd go to communion and eat our lunch. So I had my wine there, and Connie and I were eating. Connie, whatever, and I eating, we were drinking our wine.
You get caught?
No, we didn't get caught.
Oh
It's
my
a
gosh.
she didn't smell it, but she might have thought it was the altar wine she could still smell, you know, just in the bombazine. So anyway, Mom and Daddy weren't at home when I took the wine.
You only did it one time, I hope.
Mm-hmm. I can remember when they were there, and we had the Maytag washing machine in by the cupboard and kept the Electrolux mixer on it. And that's how we started making butter with the mixer. Remember that? Putting the cream in and betting that we didn't have to turn the churn.
Right.
And Grandma Elias was making butter, and she put the beaters in wrong. You had the beater with the little
Button
button on the bottom that would be on the outside of the bowl to turn the bowl. And all at once, the cream was going up to the ceiling, and she was yelling, "Johnny, Johnny!" Never heard her call Grandpa anything except John before. But when that happened, she would say, "Johnny, Johnny!"